Welcome everybody to A Little Perspective. This is your host Pranav and Nikhil. And for the very first time, our very first returning guest on the podcast, Jodi Barrett. How are you doing, Jodi, today?
I'm doing great.
That's awesome. So if you guys are wondering where we are, because we're not in our usual studio, we're right in Kananaskis doing the Prairie View Summit hike. And we like to call this the Hike and Chat, the very first episode of Hike and Chat. What do you think?
Right. So this is gonna be super special because we've never done this before, and shooting a podcast on a mountain hill on a hike is the most badass thing you'll ever do. So let's get rolling. Let's start the hike, and we're really excited to have Jodi on our today's podcast. And how are you feeling, Jodi?
I'm ready. Hey, we're good.
Just so everybody knows, Pranav and I just did a cold plunge in the freezing cold water of Kananaskis. So we're quite daring.
Awesome.
Okay, let's go.
All right.
Okay, Jodi, so we're on a hike right now. What's because this is like a hard hike, right? What's the hardest thing you've done in life, like as in a hike or any kind of physical challenge?
It's a great question, Pops. Think about that. But the hardest hike? I feel like there's different elements to some of the hard hikes I've done. Like this summer I did a hike in BC. I took a fell on that one too, and it was like physically hard to the point where we were going up through some trees, and my cousin that I was going with, she's making sounds for a bear.
Oh well.
And I think I had my backpack with my gun. I'm so tired right now for there's a bear. So I was just going to sit down. And I'm like, okay, here I am. So physically that one, when I was in Arizona, I did a hike by myself and I kind of got lost. So mentally, that was the most challenging one.
All right, so Jodi, you said that you have trained with Navy SEALs, like you've done a 24-hour hike with a Navy SEAL. And like as everybody knows, like Navy SEALs are one of the most badass people on earth, right? They're so mentally tough. What separates a Navy SEAL from a regular person?
Mindset. The discipline.
Okay.
Simply. And I think that's why it's so that if we can start to tap into that as a average person, then you can excel more in your life, your whole, like your entire life, like your personal, your business, yourself, right? And like as you train more, they get non-negotiables, right? So like, do you guys have a non-negotiable in your day?
Yeah, I'll say in a day, it has to be some sort of physical activity. So for me personally, like 5 days a week in the gym is a must. Like even if I have exams, even if I have like other commitments I have to attend to, there's a reason why like some gyms are like 24/7. It's for people to make use of it. But there's a reason why you only see like 5 people coming at 1 in the morning, 5 people coming at like 12 in the morning. Because in the end, it's like asking about like how badly do you want and do you have what it takes?
Right.
And that's what I learned from like from you especially, and the people that you talk about. Like all the people and the accounts that you post on Instagram as well and tag on Instagram, I've seen like one thing in common is that they would be doing the same thing over and over again. And that's the hard part for people to follow, is not keeping up with the consistency, not keeping up with the discipline. So an absolute for me has to be like some sort of physical movement in the day. And gym is just like a preference. I feel like that just makes me feel like grounded. I love that personally. On weekends, like go for a walk, go for a run, your push-ups at home. Just gotta move, right? How do you say it? Gotta move.
Yeah, you gotta move your body, right?
Sorry, what's your non-negotiable?
This what's every day. I mean, people ask about my rest days, and then I tell them what my rest day looks like, and that looks different for everybody. And I think like when you talk about a Navy SEAL, right? Because we talked about that before, perspective is different. But I feel like that when you want to make a change, it has to be a mindset. Because you can physically change for a while, but if you don't train your mindset, you'll fall off the wagon, right?
Right.
But when you can train and you can understand why you're doing it and how it can elevate you, is a game changer, for sure. How about you? What's your non-negotiable that you have?
So my non-negotiable is the boxing classes that I attend.
Yeah.
Every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It's at 5:30. 5:30 to 6:30, right? There are days when I haven't slept well. I've slept like 4 hours. I haven't eaten anything all day, right? What would a rational person would say? You know what? You haven't eaten anything. You're tired. There's no point in going to the boxing class, right? Because we won't be able to perform. Because that 1 hour is probably the hardest part of my day, my week. That 1 hour, my coach tells me to train every single, like, we're training every single minute. There's no, like 3-minute break after the set. No, there's nothing. 1 hour, you're training straight, right? And it's tiring. So you wanna think that, you know what, maybe I should skip today because I haven't eaten well. I'm rested well, right? That's the new thing, that rest well, right? But I remember I saw this reel from somebody, and he said that the secret to succeed in life is to never miss a day, no matter what. Never miss a day. Doesn't matter what your mind tells you, because your mind plays with you, right? Every second, every time you have to wake up early, what does your mind tell you? What's the first thing that hits your mind? Oh man, go to bed. It's all right. You'll do it tomorrow. Nah, you gotta do it today.
I always tell my clients, never miss a second day. Because life hits one day, right? Like, I get it, but never miss the second day. Because you miss the second day, oh, it's the third day. And then before you know it, you've missed a week, a month, a year, right?
And you're right. Like this mindset of, never missing a day. If you have that mindset, then you'll miss one day. But if you have a mindset of missing one day, you'll miss a lot of days.
Right, you set yourself up, right? I remember, like, so I did the 100 push-ups a day.
Right.
And when I travel a lot, sometimes when I was doing different places, I remember going to bed and I'd kind of fallen asleep and I literally sat straight up and I rolled out of bed and started doing my push-ups.
Exactly.
Because I was like, oh my gosh, I still have like 25 push-ups left because it's my non-negotiable, like 100 a day. Why can't you? Like for me, it's like there's no reason why I can't. When my kids were at home and little still, they always knew that no matter what, I had to go train. And they would also start to correlate. If I was kind of in a bad mood, they'd be like, have you been to the gym yet? Have you trained? They kind of, I think when you make your non-negotiable, it's the people around you that support you.
And you find like-minded people as well. Like
Absolutely.
Nikhil and I follow this guy on YouTube. His name is Hamza Ahmed. So one thing that he talked about that I really I'll put a lot of things in perspective for me. So there's two types of people, right? In this scenario that he gives out. One person says that I'm not gonna drink at all, and the example is given that okay, these two people are putting alcohol, understandable. One person says I'm not gonna drink at all. The other person, I'm gonna try not to drink for 6 months. So who do you think is gonna have a relapse? The person who's giving himself only a ceiling, right? And it's like funny, like I'll relate that to like a conversation yesterday. So I was meeting with like a really close friend of mine last night, and so what he gave me an example for, he gave me like the example of fleas that scientists like actually did an experiment on. Outside the jar, fleas can jump X amount of distance. If it can jump pretty high. They took a bunch of fleas, put them in the jar, and just closed the jar. They were still trying to jump, like trying to get out. After a while, when they got out of the jar, the distance that they jumped got reduced to half. The kids that the fleas have, their distance also got reduced to half. So it's about like the mindset, like the environment that you're in, the mindset you put yourself into. The people who tell like, hey, I'll stop for 6 months, I'll stop for a year. Why not just stop? Because like, can you Can you survive without drinking? The answer is yes. Can you survive without weed? The answer is yes. You don't need those things if you genuinely want to make a difference. And that flea example too. You are the one who puts those ceilings on top of you. Yes. The day you take those ceilings off, you can see like, oh damn, I was actually supposed to jump like 20 meters instead of like 5 or something.
Right, and then you have to reteach yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same thing, you know, and the people are year round, and if you get around another group of people that are positive, right? And that's kind of how you teach yourself.
Totally. And talking about discipline, it takes time to build discipline. It's easy to say things that do that, right? We can talk about mindset all day, but if you're just talking about mindset all day, you don't have the mindset, I'm pretty sure. What's the most challenging thing that you have to face while building this mindset and the discipline?
I think it's your word to yourself. I think that's what you're building. So stop talking and start doing.
Exactly.
Right? And your word is so important.
Yeah.
And I think often we diminish our own word. But if you train it so that, if I missed 100 push-ups, nobody would know. But I would know.
Yes, integrity.
To myself.
Exactly.
And to me, that's the highest level for me. It doesn't matter anymore what someone else thinks or sees me do.
Exactly.
It's what but I mean that's something you have to build. And again, like you said, it's a discipline to start. And I always tell people stack your goals, stack your activities. Don't have to change everything at once.
Right.
Because if you've been in a jar, you can take the lid off and you're like, okay, I'm going to do this. My eating's going to change. My mindset's going to change. My physical activities and change. I can do that probably for a little while.
It's that dopamine rush that you...
Right? But then it'll just kind of fade away. Challenges are great because challenges get people going. 21 days, they say it takes to build a habit, to start build.
Totally.
But you're not going to, you have to still grow that.
Right. So we were just talking about marathons and long runs, long walks. Endurance is something that's really hard to build and it takes so much time. And I was going to talk to you about this really amazing story, and I think Pranav and I talked about this. So in the 1920s, there was this guy named Ernest Shackleton, and he did a voyage to Antarctica, the first man to ever do it.
Yeah.
And his ship was called Endurance, right? And he had 100, I don't remember exactly, but it was like 100 men on board. They were stuck in Antarctica for 2 years. Wow. And you know what's the best part? Not a single man died.
That's impressive.
Right? So, like that short story gives me bone chills. Like, how can you be stuck in Antarctica with no heater, probably ran out of food after a while, and you survive? So, I don't know. What do you think about this idea of endurance?
Endurance. In that case, I would say resilience, right? Like they would have to be so resilient in their survival skills.
Isn't that amazing? Like, you can't imagine as a human to survive in Antarctica for such long. And how could somebody do that?
Well, I don't think we can wrap our head around much of that anymore, how we live, right? They tell us to shut off our water and people go into a panic. Like if they tell us, like we had that in Calgary this year, and it was like, oh no! And it's like, well, I kept thinking, I don't think something should be in place so that we preserve all along, right? So that we don't always get to the point where it's an end point, and I think that's changing how you think and how you act and how you navigate. But I think, that's pretty extraordinary that many people in that situation. I think that's pretty rare, right?
Was there any experience in your life when you were down on your knees, probably in a run or a walk, and you thought to yourself, you know what, if I go any further, I wouldn't make it, but you still made it?
I don't think I've ever felt like that when I train hard. I would, when you say down on your knees, I think I've had more life moments that have knocked me down, or I'm down on the ground, literally, figuratively, sitting there thinking, how am I going to get back up again?
And how do you move forward?
How do you move forward? You just take that moment to, I would say, reset, restart, right? And that might be just, how does the next 5 minutes of my life look, right? How does the next 10, the hour? Because you can get so far ahead. It's like when you do I did a retreat. I took one of my clients. She was one of my older clients. She had sprained her toe the day before, and we had a 900-foot waterfall to go up. So you won in the waterfall.
Right.
And I stood at the bottom and I looked up and I thought, oh, like that. Like, I mean, that's, for one, I'm responsible for her, right? But then immediately as I looked up, I noticed that there was a level 1, level 2, like a flat level.
Like a video game.
And almost like stairs. So then I thought, I had to go back and go, okay, we just got to finish that first level.
Right.
And then the next level. But that's teaching yourself too, like the endurance. You have to build that, right? And I think life's resilience, you have to, when we coddle people, they don't feel the hard parts of life. So then when something goes wrong, they're lost, right? And I think that's kind of where chaos comes out of. Like if you don't have the ability to go, okay,
Just ground yourself.
ground yourself
Totally.
and figure it out, because there's always a solution to most every problem.
And we were talking about this last night for our pre-podcast meeting technically that like we were talking about David Goggins, right? And how that man's done like Hell Week 3 times. And at the end of every Hell Week, you're supposed to be sitting on close to the edge of the ocean, but like your body's like, your torso's like fully submerged, like your lower body's fully submerged. And waves of like oceans are like just crashing on you. And those waves, like when they hit rocks, they make loud noises. Like those type of waves are like hitting the human body. People have pulled out because they get pneumonia, they get hypothermia. People have drowned and died doing that stuff. That's when only the toughest and toughest become Navy SEALs. And one thing that I love that David Goggins says is that you have to conquer every second. And that is so deep and powerful that, and I just can't wrap my head around like how insane that concept of actually just like conquer every second. Because like you mentioned too, you can't just wake up. I mean, you can wake up one day and say I'm going to accomplish, like I'm going to become a CEO. That's not going to happen in a day though.
No.
You have to go from like, like an entry level job. You become like a manager, senior manager, a VP, maybe a CFO, then a CEO. There's always a process that you have to follow, and you have to understand that. You have to fall in love with the journey. You can't just like, chase the destination, chase like the final goals, because you're never going to get it. It's like Wright brothers as well. Like they didn't get flight the first time they tried. They had so many plane crashes. But that resilience that you guys are talking about, the grit that you guys are talking about, the consistency you guys are talking about, eventually, I forgot the date, that's my fault, but and Wright brothers took flight.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly, right? So I feel like, yeah.
It's the journey.
Exactly.
It's always the journey. When I launched my first company, I was like, the day that I was like gonna tell the public that I was like this company, I was so excited. It was not a very good day, because it was like I built it up so big that I was like, it came and it went, and then I sat with it after, because I thought, yeah, but it wasn't that moment. It was all the little things along. So the journey of it. So it's the process of celebrate those successes, yes, because it's important. But I think the meat and potatoes of it,
Right.
is journey.
And I feel like for us as well, like the reason why we were like so happy about so our first guest, shout out to Ash Gilback, and she was like our very first podcast guest, and correct me if I'm wrong, February of 2022. Yeah. People say like their first experience and a lot of things sucks. It was horrible. I didn't like it. We loved it because we actually we did our research. We started something. We've been talking about that for like a year prior. We've been stalling that for like almost a year. I remember like all of 2021, we were like, hey, we're going to do it this year. This month. Didn't happen. Finally happened in 2022. But that journey of the whole year just made that first podcast worthwhile. Even though they were $30 USB mics, the sound quality was absolute dog shit. We didn't know what we were going to ask. We didn't know what the questions we're going to have. We didn't imagine this day either.
But you have a story now.
Right, there's
Right?
3 years worth of I feel like journeys and stories that brought us to you,
Yeah.
brought us here.
I'll come back to the resilience, endurance point. Just so everybody knows, Pranav ran for 30 kilometers, right? How, like, what's the highest kilometer that you've run before? Like 5 kilometers?
5.
Right? 5. And for a big guy like you, 185 pounds, dude, running till like 30 kilometers is no, like, joke, right? You must have had, like, probably like after 10 kilometers, you must be thinking, you know what? There's no way I can do this. How did you push yourself to 30 kilometers? Like, what was your mindset?
Well, I feel like you were there.
And that helps.
And I feel like I remember and I basically pulled up at like you mentioned about the 30th kilometer. I was supposed to do like a 42.5 kilometer marathon fully. And shout out to Nikhil here. He completed it, my man. But I was so Akash.
So, just so everybody knows, Pranav just did a 30-kilometer run in a marathon, and it's not a joke. Believe it or not, if you tell somebody I ran 30 kilometers, they wouldn't believe it. Like, 30 kilometers? Dude, I can't even walk that long, right? And you ran it. Dude, it's no joke. For being a big guy, 185, it's a big deal, right? What was your mindset when you were in the run? Because you probably stopped like 5 kilometers or 10 kilometers, but you still kept going, right? What was your mindset?
So one thing that I learned from this whole journey, I feel like having your people around you, like your support group, the people that root for you. So knowing that you were there, it doesn't matter if you're like behind me, with me, or like ahead of me. I just know you're there somewhere. Even if it's like, like consciously, like somewhere in the back of my head, I'm like, well, Nikhil's running somewhere. I can catch up to him. We can finish this together. And I could only do 30 kilometers out of the whole full marathon, but dude, it's a big deal. No, totally, I understand that. Yeah, totally. But like, kudos to you that you finished up the 42.5. And like I was saying, like, so as soon as I called the cab. I was like, okay, I gotta stop. It was like the west part of Regina. And the cab drive itself, like the guy was trying to ask me questions. How people like make small talk. I was only giving close-ended answers. I was like not in the right headspace to like strike up a conversation. I got in my car. I called Akash, and I think it was a Sunday. He was in the gym, and I almost like broke down, cause like I know like it's like going into an exam unprepared and then complaining why didn't I get full marks. Like of course like I'm not like I was gonna fail because I should have practiced. But then one thing that he told me is that you could have finished it or not finished it, doesn't matter, but at least you had people that are like supporting. Because I feel like if say for example like if Akash was there in that moment to like right by me, he would have dragged my ass like across the finish line. He would have at least said something to me. And it's weird, like call it placebo, call it like an instant rush of dopamine or something. Knowing that there's a person that trusts you and like rooting for you just gives you like an extra boost. It doesn't matter if like your legs are broken, like David Goggins, like again I'll talk about him. I understand he was alone. He has a completely different mindset. I aspire to build that. That man had broken feet, put compression tapes around his foot and still finished it. Maybe he was his own support system. But there's nothing wrong with having like,
People around.
Yeah, so I feel like
And
you
no matter what,
and all that stuff, yeah.
what happens, anything happens, whenever you're down on your knees, just remember, I'll be always be rooting for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Go up, get up, don't be a bitch.
No, I can't be.
Like that's such an important thing that the both of you at your age, you can learn that. Because it's key. You don't need a big amount of people, but you need a person. 1 or 2 people in your corner, but you need to let them in. So I sit here and I listen to the two of you talk, and I know what I had to learn 5 years ago to let people help, because I'm very like, I can do it on my own. But when you realize that you don't have to do it by yourself,
Great.
it'll speed you up, right? So
Who did you learn? who did you let in? Maybe like might be a few people, but like if anybody you want to like, just remember on this journey that like we're on this podcast and you're like, yeah, I always have these people in my heart, in my mind. I always carry these people along with me.
Yeah, so my circle's pretty small with that, and I have like one of my photographer friends that I met when I first started. He reached out to me and we did one of our first hikes out here, and he is one of my people too. That it's like he always checks in. You have people that check in, right? And then I have a good girlfriend back home. She's always, and you also need that person that was going to be real with you.
Yeah.
Right? So it's good to have a support system of, cheerleaders, but you need the real person
We're gonna check you.
who's going to say, oh, come on, call you on your own, baby. Right? It's pretty key. So, yeah.
All right, so we're at the top now.
Yeah.
Jodi, just so everybody knows, Jodi was carrying a 18-pound kettlebell in a backpack. And she was like ahead of the group. And how do you do that, Jodi?
Training. And the fact that you asked me when we got near the top, you're like, do you want to give that to me? And I'm like, no, not now. Now it's like, finish. Right?
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So I gotta ask you one thing. So you're a returner on our guest, our very first returner. So first of all, thank you so much for that. Nikhil and I and our team can't appreciate that enough. And we never imagined like in the span of like 2 years of doing this podcast that we'll be actually in, Alberta in a different province, outdoors on a hike doing the podcast. We love the journey. How was your experience today?
It was amazing. It's always I'm pretty grateful every day I wake up, and getting to hang out with you guys and your team was a great part of my day. So thank you for inviting me along.
That's awesome. Okay. I know we've asked you this in our previous podcast as well, but I feel like the more we talk about it, the more clear it gets, and we want to know more about you. What's your why in life?
I love that you asked me that again, because I was watching the podcast and, it's, I think, more so because it comes more clearer to me too as I grow myself and my company. And it is the intertwining the mindset and beings. Like we talked about when you did your run, how when you're in the car you felt kind of emotional. And I feel like that's the tool that you can use with people to break down the walls, because we build these walls. But when you train hard, sometimes like I do it in my Phoenix transformation, I do a hard challenge. It's an hour long. It's not, lifting beyond what you can lift or anything. It's just repping and repping and repping. And the point of it is, in an hour, you can't believe what you accomplished. But also at the end of that hour, if you're holding the wall up, it gives you a minute for the wall to fall. And for you to just be real with stuff that's going on in your life. And I think being able to help people get there to kind of create, like that awareness. We're all pretty aware, but we avoid, right? So I think when you train, it allows you to, confront if you need to, but, create that awareness, acknowledge it, and take action to, change yourself. So my why and the bigger whys is to just help people explore that so that they can just enjoy like things we enjoy, like the journey of life, right? It's a journey of life.
Totally.
That's, when I was walking up by myself, I did a little video recorded and I was like, why do I train? And I look around and I'm like, so I can do this. Like to come and hang out with you guys, I'll be 50 next year. And for me, it's like, it allows me to live life, right?
Well, you're 20 by heart.
And I forgot, I think you should remind me like who's the person who actually said this, but what you mentioned about like, sometimes we overestimate what we can do in like an hour. The quote goes like, you overestimate what you can do in 1 year and underestimate what you can do in 10 years.
Right.
Right? Who said that?
I heard it from Bill Gates, but
He like another business entrepreneur.
yeah, it's like an old saying, pretty old saying.
Right.
But you work with a lot of clients, right? And there's this idea of how every person is like a walking book, and you can learn from
Absolutely.
everybody, right? Do you have like any stories from someone that you train with and you like change their lives? Because you are changing people's lives. Do you have any story you want to share? You don't have to take anybody's names.
I think probably one of my biggest ones is Iva, and I'll say her name because yeah, you're right, really comfortable with me sharing her journey, and her mindset changed so much. And their son, good perfect tool. But when I first met her, she didn't know what a jumping jack was, what a lunge was. She'd swing her 5-pound kettlebell. And then she was up to swinging a 30-pound. She's the one who came on the hike and sprained her toe and went on,
Yeah.
the 900-foot waterfall. She did the not the Tough Mudder, but she did the Mud Girl run with me this year. She'll be 76 in October.
So well.
And for her birthday, she wants to jump out of a plane, right? But she always talks about, like, I went out to D-Star First Nations and spent 6 weeks training with her there and a group of ladies, and then she drives back. She'd drive into the city to see me 3 times a week. And she always talks about her physical, being able to move and be active and do all these things. She came to Jamaica with me when we did a retreat there. So, I mean, being able to, like, she's had such a tough life, but for her to be able to see positive about that in life's journey. Because sometimes, like we talk about resilience, how we always have a choice at the end of the day, right? Are we going to let life keep us down, or are we going to rise above it, right? And for one of my clients, I've seen her overcome so many things. And I just believe in the positivity of movement. Movement moves energy, moves your body, and it allows you to, think clearer and just navigate life a little bit better.
I was reading and this is like I think before the first podcast shooting, we want to get to know our guests. So I was doing like some readings of like some articles that you actually wrote, or like for like magazines and me.
Yeah.
And one thing that actually like struck with me the most, and I was really shocked to hear that, and like how you mentioned too, and I wanted to ask you about this like in the first podcast, but didn't get a chance. Like you mentioned, like you've had like a really tough life, which led you to basically mold you into like the person you are. In that article, you mentioned that this one lady, I think she was your client, or is her client. Her entire family passed away in like a fatal train accident.
That's Iva.
That's her. Yeah. So like her entire family, like you mentioned in that, like passed away except her.
Yeah, so who was with her in that.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, and she grew up in, she is recovering alcoholic.
Yeah.
So yeah, so she's come so far, and I always think like, again, like life you can decide, right? If you're gonna, because she's had a hard life, right? Like you sit with her, but you'd never sit with her and feel heavy, like there's a dark cloud, because she has such positivity in her life. So yeah, but that is, you have to work that, right? You have to train that too. And I think gratitude's the best way to do that.
Right.
Right? Like, just think grateful.
I don't know if you talked about this on the first podcast, but we started this podcast on this idea that stories can change somebody's life, right? No amount of motivation or watching David Goggins videos can do what a story you can relate to can do for you, right? And there's this story that we talked about too. Do you know about Anne Frank?
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about positivity, that girl was stuck in a tanks for 3 years, didn't see sunlight, they just ate whatever they could get their hands on.
Yeah.
And she used to write a journal every day. She used to write a diary. And in a diary, she mentions that no matter what's happening outside, there's wars going on. She knows if she gets caught, she'd be dead. She'd go to concentration camp and she would be dead, right? But just having that optimism that no matter what's happening outside, I know that people are good. That gives me chills.
Right.
You know, like having that positivity, like irrespective of what's happening in your life
At that age.
Yeah.
and seeing the light at the end of the tunnel takes a lot of courage.
Right.
You sure?
I was thinking just and her sharing learning that about that that's why we share stories, right?
Stories are something that we need. Like as humans evolved on stories. Like, like there's a who's the guy? Maslow's theory. Like everybody have their own physiological need, like food.
Hierarchy of needs. The hierarchy of needs.
Hierarchy of need.
Yeah.
So basically, like humans have a hierarchy of need that the most basic ones are food, water, shelter, and then there's also story. Like you grew up listening to story. Just imagine growing up and you didn't have any story around you.
Right. Right. Because it's the journey. The story's a journey.
Right.
So when I finished writing my book, I wasn't gonna publish it. So I thought I wrote it and I was like, okay, I wrote it, but I wrote it to heal. But then I was like, don't, because the power of sharing is so powerful. So it was like, have to share it so that people can, take they need the art. I think that's why we connect, right? And that's how we connect with different stories.
And people sometimes think that their life's ordinary. Like, XYZ things happened. And yeah, like, I'm better now. That wouldn't help anybody.
Right.
Everybody's probably going through, like, the same stuff. Like, what could I do? But it's about taking a leap of faith that once you say something out there, once you project that to the world,
Be courageous enough to say that, right?
so many people will relate to it because those guys also don't have the courage to say it. At least you said it on behalf of them. So you're representing a lot of women, a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right? So you should be proud of yourself because you sure are.
Yeah. Whenever somebody asks me, like, okay, who are you doing the podcast with? Okay, she's the most badass lady you'll ever meet. She's the fittest person I know. I don't even know. Yeah. So what's ahead of you? Like, what are you planning to do in the next 5-10 years?
5-10 years. Well, my online platform, I want to grow that, but I want to grow my retreats and my workshops. Because online space is great because it allows you to travel, but I want to still do the in-person, but just in a different, I guess a different scenario, more speaking. Because I always say it's about more than a kettlebell. So with that being said, it's about the conversations around it, how you can, basically change your play. And I always say you can start in your home because maybe you're not confident enough or you don't feel secure enough going out to a gym. So you start in your home and you grow, right? So I think, throw my online and do the retreats is a big part of where I would hold that.
Yeah.
And that's where the world is heading. Community-based, basically services. Because there's no better feeling than building a community from scratch, finding like-minded people, and all growing together. And I think we mentioned this on the last time too, that there's cake for everybody at the table. Just gotta be willing to share it.
Yeah. Like the experience of doing the hike and shivering together.
Yes. Holy cow. Dumping into the cold water. Well, that's the last two. At least where you and I don't know. Are you gonna do it? I'm good. Oh yeah.
Like
I don't know. I did it.
You did. Yeah,
Yeah,
did it.
that's good.
It's fine. Yeah.
Okay, so as always, towards the end of the podcast, we do a rapid fire round.
All right.
I'm gonna ask you 3 questions. Pranam's gonna ask you 3 questions.
All right.
1 word, 1 sentence. You can go on forever if you
Oh,
want.
goodness. Sir.
Okay, do you wanna start?
Sure. What's one lesson that you want to project to the world?
Don't give up.
What was the best part about this hike?
The laughter.
What do you look forward to every single day when you wake up?
Opening my eyes.
If you could make one rule that everybody in the world had to follow, what would that be?
I bet you could guess. Move your body.
And I think I've asked this before too, but again, what are you the most grateful for in these 50 years?
My family.
What would be the title of your eulogy?
And my what?
Of your eulogy? Eulogy. So basically on like your tombstone, I guess is what you're. Yeah. So like when somebody, you read your own eulogy,
What would that be? That's
how
how
you want to be remembered as.
She had a good ride.
Yeah.
Also.
And I know, like, I tell my kids that. I always say, if something ever happens to me, just know I had a good ride.
And we are there to spread that message.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jodi. We planned this all out just to have a conversation with you, and totally worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You made it worthwhile, Jodi. And again, couldn't have asked for a better guest, a better venue, a better scenario, better environment,
Better weather.
Dragon is sushi, right? Yeah. No, trust me. Like I said, you made this possible. We were just moving stuff around, if you want to call it logistics, but you made this possible. Without you, that we wouldn't be here. So, all of our credit, into like everybody watching too. Yes. It all goes out to our guests and our viewers, and today, especially to you. So, thank you so much, Jodi.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So much. And at the end, I want to just give a huge shout out to Nikhil, our, how do I say, technical logistic expert. He planned all this out, and huge shout out to him.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us for this podcast, Jodi. And I'll see you guys in the next podcast. Take care, guys.